I know what you're thinking. Is this the booth, drafting the circuits, three-way theater, or the Kevin Jackson show? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I kinda lost track myself here on Hoobazoo.com. So, do you feel lucky, punk?
The following conversation is real. It took place on Tuesday, June 8th of 2004 between a Blonde Star advisor and a subscriber.
Blonde Star emergency, this is Steve. Is there an emergency in your vehicle?
Oh my god. I've locked myself in my car and the keys are on the outside.
Ma'am,
oh my god.
Ma'am, I need you to calm down.
Okay, it's just that the windows are rolled up and I'm starting to sweat. My keys are on the outside.
Now, your keys are on the outside of the vehicle?
Yes, oh my god.
Now, does your car have automatic locks or...
Yes.
Okay, here's what I need you to do. Take hold of the inside of your door handle there. Are you doing this? The shiny thing. Grab the shiny thing.
Okay, I've got it.
Okay, now give that a tug.
Okay.
Did it open?
Yes, oh my god, thank you.
Okay, now what is that noise?
Oh, that's my door alarm.
Yeah, but that only happens if the keys are in the ignition, hon.
Oh my god. You know what?
Your keys are actually in your ignition.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my god, thank you so much, Blonde Star.
That's why we're here. Do you need anything else?
Blonde Star.
No, that's
Always
it.
on, because you're always blonde.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
This is blasphemy. This is madness. This is the booth.
Staring down, looking at the blood-stained concrete. You're the dead MC, flying at my feet. You took a 9mm rhyme straight to your mind. Damn, I better split. This is my time, so I make my way up the block. Get to home base and lock that up. Crack the Cavassier and grab the phone. Call one of my troops up. Hope the soldiers homie says, yo, what's up, what's going on? Make it quick, cause I'm trying to get my Stella on. Nigga, your girl, I'm in the... These lyrical assassins tried to pull a hit, and then boom, came a noise from the other room. It was the boys in blue with the SWAT crew. They got us locked up for lyrical murder. It's one of them charges that you never heard of. It's the booth. The booth. The booth. The booth. Yeah, it's the booth. The booth. The booth. The booth. Yeah, we're killing all your podcasts like the HIV virus. You want to battle this kid? Huh, don't even try this. Back the up, think again, count to 10. You want to grab that mic just to get done in? It's the booth. The booth. The booth. The booth. Yeah, it's the booth. The booth. The booth. The booth. Yeah, it's the booth.
Was he African?
African.
No. He was American, and he was like you. He looked just like you.
He was Jewish.
Just like you.
Okay, Jew. It's an odd crime for a Jew to commit.
I'm pretty docile.
Okay, so we have an African Jew wearing a hoodie.
No, you don't.
No.
That's not what I said. Is that what you heard me say? I said he looked like you. Do you look like an African Jew?
No, I look like a cop.
Yeah.
He was Caucasian.
Hey, what's up? It's your boy, Sinister One, broadcasting live from the City of Champions. You are listening to The Booth. It is March 19th. Our year is actually flying along here, and we got a lot of stuff going on. People in the chat already. Got to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. First of all, we got to get in here and get our moment of silence in, our 7 seconds, moments of silence real quick for the Mosque shooting in New Zealand. So please join with us. Our 7 seconds of silence for this mosque shooting in New Zealand. God bless. All right, so this mosque shooting that happened this past weekend in New Zealand was a horrific, horrible, terrible act done by a 28-year-old shooter who is considered a white nationalist who hates immigrants. And he's a Trump guy. and it's kind of sad. This is, it's an overseas thing. And you hate to hear that this guy's connected in any way to Trump's rhetoric. And, we talked about this stuff about giving people power, even though Trump isn't really connected to these people. He gave these people a voice. He gave these people the thought that they can do whatever they want. And, to see this 74-page report that he left on his social media page under the name of Brenton Tarrant, because I don't believe we found out what his real name is, before he went on this rampage. And I have to say, I saw the actual video of the shooting, and it just was surreal. It just terrified me. It just angered me. But the fact that this gentleman did this hateful crime bothers me. And, and I applaud the people who stepped up and was able to get this guy out of the mosque, so no more other people were shot. But there were a couple of heroes there that should be, acknowledged for stopping this tragedy. And I was upset at first because, when they had the pictures posted of this man in court, which you'll see on our Facebook Live, his face was pixelated, and I was like, why is this? And Rob chimed in and said in New Zealand, that's probably, you said that's a law, R.
Yeah, that's the law. They don't allow you have to block out the face.
Yeah, and I hate that sometimes. I feel like that if you did this crime and, you should be able to stand up for it, and, and it's still not cut and dry. Even though we've got this video that he live streamed. This is a scary thing about our life, our world as it is today too. This gentleman carried out this act and he live streamed it over the internet. That's what makes this whole thing even that much more sad and scary. We have this thing where we're on the internet and people use it for fun. People use it to communicate with family and friends. But this isn't the first. This is like the mainstreams over social media, and it's just a crazy thing. So I'm going to get into this real quick. I'm going to let you guys speak on this. I'm going to start with R² first.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say about it. It's a horrific act. It doesn't, it's disgusting on any level. It's not about politics. It's not about religion. It's not about immigration. It's not about anything other than cold-blooded murder. And there's really nothing. There's just nothing left to say. Now, some of the side issues are interesting. You talked about New Zealand law. Now, remember, a lot of these people are trying to make themselves famous, and by blocking out his face, he doesn't get to be famous because you don't know his face and you don't know his name yet. So at the end of his trial, I have no doubt he'll be walked in front of the cameras, but that won't necessarily be for what he wants. So that'll be interesting. And then, the other thing is some of the geopolitics involved. I mean, yes, he said he was an admirer of President Trump because of his perceptions of Trump's support for white nationalism and anti-immigration. But what's interesting is this was an Australian guy, not an American, no connection to the United States or our politics. And he didn't commit this act in his own country of Australia. He went to New Zealand. You know why? Because they have lax gun laws. And it was interesting how fast the government of New Zealand said, you know what, we're going to crack down right now on that. So, other countries can take note when something like this happens and try to do the right thing. And we seem to sit here after, 20,000 people, gunned down in this country, and we still don't, give a rat's ass about trying to, fix some of these things about automatic weapons and military style weapons. We're not talking about, defense of the home weapons here. We're talking about something else. So not to conflate this with other issues, but I don't think there's much to say about it. The guy's a filthy criminal. He should rot in jail. He should feel torture for the rest of his natural life, and then he should rot in hell for his afterlife. And, that's all I have to say about it.
Ken, I'm going to let you jump in here.
Yeah, what he said, very simply. If I can just add something else, picking up on what both Rob and you observed, this guy clearly is a cold-blooded murderer who was looking to mimic Natural-Born Killers. I don't know if you folks remember that movie from the 90s, the Oliver Stone movie, where can't remember the Mallory and something other that played by Woody Harrelson were going around and became media darlings, and they enjoyed that. And that's what this guy did. There is no excuse. There's nothing we can say to make the victims of this tragedy feel any better, although I will give the old Jewish prayer, may their memories be a blessing. There were a number of people who literally laid down their lives to save other members of the mosque, including covering young women and children with their bodies so the bullets would hit them and not the children. There were at least 2 people who actually charged this man unarmed. One of them looks like scared him off a bit. But this is not anything new. And I think that's the problem. I think the only thing you don't know is the history you have not read. To quote Harry Truman, it's not that we all suddenly have mass shootings because Donald Trump became president. It's not because we have racism because Donald Trump became president. We've always had this problem in most of the Western world. But the only because of social media, I think we're now being forced, for good and for bad, to confront this. And my only hope is, the only silver lining in this tragedy is people are going to get woke and see that these people are out there, they're determined, and they're not going away. And as for the last point about New Zealand's lax gun laws, the Prime Minister and the Attorney General got up and said, okay, we're done. We're banning semi-automatic and assault rifles. That's not going to happen here, no matter how many people die, until we have a generational shift. I think that may be starting to happen now, but don't hold your breath. As much as it hurts me, we had a massacre of young school-aged children in Sandy Hook, and that didn't change anything. We've had mosque shootings. We've had temple shootings. We even had a shooting on a military base a number of years ago, and it didn't change anything. It disgusts me, but that's going to happen. But all I can say is my thoughts, prayers are out with the fans and friends and families. And again, may their memories be a blessing.
Yeah, and it stinks because, one of those victims was I believe he was 3 years old, a young 3-year-old boy, not much time on this planet. And, to see these pictures that come out, there's always something like that. It's always someone who doesn't deserve to have that happen, to them at such a young age. And, we struggle with that, and it's tough and it's sad. So, we're going to move on. I got to give a big shout out to Jay Kinzer of EXP, who wrapped up his music video shoot this past weekend at the Tap in Haverhill on St. Patty's Day. Me and Vianna Marie actually was down there, so keep an eye out for that video, which was shot by Mr. DL. Also, EXP on last Thursday released their latest project, EXP, The Lost Sessions. That's available on datpiff.com. For anybody who wants that. It's free download. So it's all it is pretty much some tracks that they had never released before that they remastered, added some new verses and stuff, and it's nice to listen to because you get to hear that growth in EXP that we've seen from the time that they've first been on this show to now. So you want to go check those out. In the Tell Us What We Already Knew department, Mass State Police had a quota system. All this is just news from the overtime pay scandal. So I used to frequent the Turnpike to go back and forth to work at Logan Airport. So I traveled to TED pretty much 5 days a week, 6 or 7 if I'm working overtime. Every now and then the cops were in there, and you could pretty much like clockwork know when these guys were going to be in there issuing tickets for speeding. You knew it. Everyone here in Massachusetts that's hearing this story and reading this story right now, look, it's not just a state police thing. City police have a quota. All over the country, quotas are met. There's always that joke that in November and December, tickets go up because guys have to meet their end-of-the-year quotas. It's always been that way. The fact is that they've always denied, and now they've actually got proof that these guys had a quota system to write 8 to 10 tickets. To be honest, it's a job. And I feel if I'm one of these guys that a lot of people are probably going to say, you're wrong, Keith. I'm going to say that if you issue a quota for guys to write tickets, I think that's a fair thing to say as long as the tickets are fairly given out. I have no problem with the quota being given to prove that the guy's not sitting on his butt. But Ken, being the defense attorney, I'm going to turn this over to you because you've got a lot to say about why quotas are bad nationwide.
Yes. Okay. Let's start from the top. For those of you who may not be as up to date as Mr. Sinister One is here, we have something called the Massachusetts Turnpike. that goes from Boston, which is in the east, all the way to the New York border, which is in the west. This was under the jurisdiction of Troop E and the Massachusetts State Police. The Massachusetts State Police is broken into various troops, which have various geographic areas of responsibility, except for Troop E, which ran the entire pike. There was a scandal where allegedly, because we don't have any – actually, we only have one person who's been found guilty, so I want to be very careful. Allegedly, a number of state troopers who worked for this troop were claiming overtime they did not work. This has been a scandal. It actually, some could argue, it affected the gubernatorial election. One of the things we are now finding out was one of the ways the troopers faked the overtime was they were quota of writing 8 to 10 tickets per shift, so they'd write their 10 tickets and then would leave early. Well, hey, I did my job. I met my quota. Here's proof that I actually worked the shift. Here's my 10 tickets. And that's how they caught them. I do not believe in giving out tickets as a measure of whether you're doing your job. This is what we have supervisory personnel for. This is why we have GPS units in motor vehicles. This is why we have two-way radios. I'm sorry, the job of the Massachusetts State Police is to patrol the highways and byways, to lend support to local communities, and to enforce the law. If they see something going on, they should write a ticket. If they don't see it, they shouldn't write a ticket. The idea that you got to bring in a certain amount of arrests or tickets is reminiscent of the Cheka of the 1920s, where Stalin sent out issues, you need to round up X amount of counter-revolutionaries, whether they're counter-revolutionaries or not. Okay? This is nonsense. It also has a tendency to find certain groups of people in a more disfavored position, i.e., people of color driving high-end vehicles are going to be targeted more. Young people are going to be targeted more. People with out-of-state license plates are going to be targeted more. Why? Because they're less likely to fight back. So now what you have, instead of you have the rule of law, you have rule by law, which lowers the respect the community holds police officers in, and therefore makes it less likely they're going to cooperate when the police need a major investigation solved. One of the biggest problems we have in Brockton, and I wish Z-Man was on right now, he will tell you trying to get people in certain areas of Brockton to cooperate with the police during like a homicide investigation is extremely difficult because most of those people don't trust the cops for legitimate and not so legitimate reasons. So for that, I'm sorry, all due respect, Sinister One, I think there's a more efficient, more logical, and better system of supervising your personnel to make sure they're doing the job than giving them a freaking quota to write X amount of tickets.
Well, that's why I turned it over to you, because you're a defense attorney, right. So you're going to see the other side of that. You're going to know more about it. Like I said, me being just that guy, even though it sucks getting a ticket, sometimes, and like I said, I did say, if the tickets are given fairly, I kind of really don't have no problem with the quota. I'm going to turn it over to R-Squared and see what R-Squared has to say on this.
I kind of agree with both of you in the sense of Ken's point that quotas can't be the main way or the primary way that they're monitoring performance on these guys' shifts. I think quotas are useful as one of many tools, or at least several tools that they look at to do some metrics, to be able to look at it so that people aren't just sitting on the corner of the road shooting the breeze and not paying attention. So the quota can't control what they're doing. It can't be the focus of the patrol time. But I think it's something that supervisors can use as one of several tools. So if the supervisors are otherwise doing their job and, conducting oversight and doing training and paying attention to what's going on out there, then I think it could be helpful. The problem with quotas is on any given day, you don't know what conditions on the road is going to be like, whether there are going to be a lot of speeders, whether there are going to be very few speeders, or what's going on. And not everybody who's out on patrol is in the area where that's prone to speeding. So it's really hard to just impose that as a random number. So it's got its pros and cons. I certainly want to see troopers, accountable and doing good work. And I also want to make sure that they're keeping the road safe, because that is one of their primary duties. And one of the ways to keep the road safe is to discourage people by multiple means. to do that. Now, you can't just write all warnings. That's not a good way to do it, but you can't do too many tickets either. There's got to be some balance. There has to be some discretion. And so I'd like to see a balance of these different things.
Nice. We got a lot of people hanging out in the chat with us. I got to say hi to our regulars out there. Amy Lou Porter's out there. Vianna Marie's out there. I see a new person out there. Rick Harton. He's saying hello. So, Rick Harton, thanks for joining the chat. Vianna Marie said, we need more outrage about these shootings going back to the New Zealand shooting. She says, people do not care. That's obviously with the way things keep going. We have become desensitized by it. And I think that last comment that she makes hits to that point where I talked about it being broadcast over social media. We've become so desensitized to the violence. That's why it's not surprising to see a lot of these things end up, unfortunately, on social media. And, it's just a tough thing. So go ahead. Oscar.
I was just going to say, to Vianna's point, I certainly agree with it, but to take it a step further, the issue is this. I don't know how much we are desensitized to it. Sorry, let me start that again. I think I lost sound.
Yeah, no, you were good. No, we heard you.
I don't know how much of it is being desensitized. I think if you look at the country as a whole, 80 to 90% of the country is outraged by this and would support the banning of assault weapons. We might disagree over some of the other measures, but most people, 80, 90% of the country, support banning assault weapons and better background checks. So the problem is that you have a political class that's unaffected by this. And God forbid, I don't want anything to happen to anybody's family or friends or place of worship. I don't want this to happen anymore. But the problem is these are NRA stooges, and if they're not, if there's no personal connection to them, they're never going to change because the NRA controls their voting agenda and their money and so many other things. And maybe it's more than just the NRA, but it's politics that's preventing them from doing the clear will of the country in this case. And I'm not sure I've ever seen such a strong group of politicians go against an 80, 90% issue. This is kind of a unique thing for us. Usually that's the kind of numbers that drive change, and it's not. And I think that, and again, I'm not wishing this on anybody. I'm truly not. Please don't interpret that. But unless they become personally affected by this in some way, even if it's just an emotional response to the next shooting, like in Parkland, it changed some opinions. Rick Scott all of a sudden supported gun control, whatever. It's just not going to change, and that's what's missing.
To be honest, you would have thought after their softball game had got shot up that a lot of guys would have changed their thoughts on legislations. And I was like, oh, here we go. They're finally going to step up their own. This was one of their own who was shot. There were people. Right. This was a very scary situation. This guy hunted down politicians and shot them at a yearly annual softball game. I thought they were definitely going to step up and make changes, and they didn't. Trump rolled out. I forget the congressman who was shot, or whoever it was that was shot at his. Yeah,
Steve Scalise.
He marched him out, and supposedly he was going to do these big things to make big changes, and we haven't heard the thing. We haven't heard nothing.
Well, I think that goes back to R Squared's point that these individuals are so captive of the gun lobby that even getting shot will not change anything. I'll give you an example. For those of you who are old and decrepit like myself, R Squared and Sinister One, we remember when Reagan got shot.
Mm-hmm. There was supposed to be big changes after that.
Right.
To mental health and everything.
Right.
He had a mental health issue.
And one of the people, one of his closest confidants, his press secretary, Brady, was a staunch Second Amendment advocate until he got shot, and then he found the Brady Coalition and all of that. But that took him suffering from severe brain damage to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was ostracized by the Republican establishment.
Yep, you're right. Yeah, you make a great point there.
And that was what, 83, 82?
83, 80. Yeah, I was in high school. Okay. So, yeah,
81.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right, moving along. Brockton news: 3 men from Tennessee, very random, were arrested after being caught with 9 firearms, face masks, and gloves. The funny thing about this story is that one of the defendants, his mother was reached out to and asked, why was he in Brockton? And she said he was on vacation. And all I could think about is these guys sitting in court and the cops grilling them, and they're giving that whole Eddie Murphy, Beverly Hills Cop, I'm on vacation. Ken, I mean, you were at the courthouse. This has been, what's surprising is that this is a pretty big news story. It did get some national tugs. It did pop up on the national wire. And I'm still trying to figure out, 1, it's so random, and 2, why is this such big news. We've had people caught with weapons.
Well, I think you're missing part of the story.
Tell us, you're the defense attorney, so you've got the inside. I got to know why this is such a big story.
I was actually there when they arraigned him. First of all, a number of the weapons were fully converted AK-47s.
Oh, okay. Okay, so this is why it's a big deal. Okay.
Number two was the way that Tim Cruz's office, he's our district attorney in Plymouth County, and I'm not saying he's wrong, although I thought the evidence of this was a little on the thin side.
Mm-hmm.
But you could make an argument that while there was no definitive connection, guys walking around with Kevlar, gas masks, fully converted automatic weapons, and a belief that they had access to close to 2,000 rounds of ammunition, they ain't here on vacation. The theory was that they were using Brockton for a main staging ground for a terrorist-type hit or a gang hit on something either in New Bedford, Fall River, or Quincy. Maybe this is gang-related. For those of you who don't know, New Bedford and Fall River are a major place where they import heroin and OxyContin and fentanyl. Quincy has been, for whatever reason, I can't figure this out, a major distribution point of the drug. It's where they where they store this and cut it up for whatever reason. And Brockton, being midway between those two cities, tends to be a place where a lot of the shootouts occurred. That was the theory. Now, I have absolutely no evidence this is true. And I want to be very, very clear on this point. None of the gentlemen were caught with so much a joint on them, nor was there any connection to any of the domestic criminal organizations here in Massachusetts. But a bunch of guys from Tennessee with enough armor to knock off a Brinks truck in Brockton at 3 o'clock in the morning, you got to ask some questions.
Yeah.
If I may, 1 second, Mr. Sinister One, Mr. R Squared, if you will be permitted to indulge me one moment.
Go ahead.
I am waiting for all of my NRA colleagues and you Second Amendment advocates and all you members of the Gun Owners Action League, or GOAL, to come down and protest to the Brockton District Court how their brothers are being mistreated for a mere firearms violation. So where are you guys? I was expecting the NRA to be picketing the Brockton District Court and threatening to, run a challenger for Tim Cruz in his next election for harassing people who merely want to have the right to protect themselves. Where were you guys? Could it be the fact that maybe the people who had the guns were white? Could that be a point, Sinister One? R Squared? What do you think?
I'll let R Squared chime in. I don't know if he's familiar with the story.
I'm not familiar with the story, and unfortunately I lost the connection right when Ken was starting, and I just got back on about 10 seconds ago. I sent you guys a note, so I didn't even hear anything you said, Ken. I'm very sorry about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Very, very short. A number of individuals from Tennessee who were of color were caught with a number of firearms, including 3 fully converted AK-47s, a larger...
No, they weren't of color. They were white.
I heard, no, they were of color.
Oh, no, their pictures up on Facebook.
I was there. They're Hispanic.
It's 2 white males and 1 Hispanic.
Well, this way, those 2 white guys, they look pretty Hispanic to me when I was in the courtroom. They look really... I mean, they may look white, but they may be light-skinned Hispanics because they look Hispanic to me.
They look cornbread white to me. No offense. I'm not making any jokes. I'm just saying I got the picture up here on Facebook.
All right. So where are the NRA people?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm asking.
Yep. So I'm about to just take that picture and share it with our guys.
Well, when I was in the court, they looked Hispanic to me. Maybe I'm wrong. That could be, like I said, I did not ask the ethnicities of any of the individuals.
The glass may have been dirty that they were behind.
That's possible. No, the glass is tinted. No, seriously. There's a reason for that. The glass is tinted.
Oh, it is? Well, that's probably why they looked. That's why they looked.
The idea is
Hold on. I'm sharing this right now. So you guys are going to get real time here. I'm sharing something in our booth group. I Squared and them can peek at it. You tell me how these 2 gentlemen look Puerto Rican. These 2 dudes look corn-fed white from Tennessee with one possible
the guy on the
or
Hispanic. Hispanic.
Yeah,
yes,
the guy on the right
is
the
mixed.
other two don't look.
Those two guys, I'm seriously, I was in the courtroom.
The other two are definitely from Tennessee.
Look that pale white. They did not look pale white.
Well, what do they look like to you in that picture? Because they look like they definitely from Tennessee.
They look white, but they did not look that pale white. They look more like him. The guys on the right look more. The guys on the left look more like him.
Oh my God! Oh, we got a lot of people in the chat. Oh, we got a couple of new people in the chat. Shannon Amato, and again, I said Rick Houghton, who's I guess I'll just say it right now. Shannon Amato and Rick Houghton, you are in the running to win a T-shirt from ilovebostonsports.com. So we got some new listeners here.
Shannon Amato has the best quote of the night. Why would anybody go to Brockton on vacation?
Hey, hold on a second. I'm gonna I'm gonna stand up for Brockton. We are the city of champions.
Full diesel on Brockton.
That's right. We are the city of champions. Okay, let's start out with that. We've got our own minor league sports team, a great stadium. Okay. We don't have a race. We have a racetrack. It's just not in operation right now. Let's see. What are the great things about Brockton? Come on, Sister One.
Food.
Yeah.
We have some great food here.
You're going to go from any state in the country, and you want to visit New England, and you're going to pick Brockton instead of Boston, instead of Maine, instead of Vermont, instead of...
No, seriously, have you seen the rates in Boston? You can get a much cheaper rate at the Westgate Mall, at the Holiday Inn.
And we both know why. Even Bob Kraft doesn't go there.
And speaking of Bob Kraft, it looks like the charges are going to be dropped. We just want to get that out there real quick. And thanks, Paul Forrest and Kyle Caper. Yeah, it looks like they're making a deal. One of the things why they might be saying the charges are dropped, the argument was that they were basing this on video that they had with a towel over him, and their argument was you can't see anything going on. So how do you know what you're assuming happened?
Okay, stop.
And that's their argument. Go ahead, get into this real quick.
All right, let's start with. Okay, welcome to Uncle Kenny's Discount House of Law.
You're a defense attorney. You should love that answer. You should love that.
No, okay, first of all, for all you Google lawyers out there, don't mix up your Google search with my law degree. Okay? Number 2, Rob Kraft getting a hand job is not illegal, even in the state of Florida, where they mate with alligators. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
What's illegal is to pay for sexual services. So, how are you going to prove that he paid for sex? There are 3 ways to do it. Number 1, you have him on a videotape, conducting business. I'll give you $40 for a hand job. That's 1. Number 2, you have a confession from Rob Kraft saying, hey, I paid $40 for a hand job. Okay? And number 3, you have the co-conspirator admit that she charged him $40 for a hand job. Now, let's go from the top. Number 1, do you have the videotape of him asking for a hand job? No, you don't. Even assuming, I'll use the Lattimore standards we say here in Massachusetts. That's on the case called Commonwealth versus Lattimore, which requires us to take everything the police report as being absolutely true, that Bob Kraft received a hand job. Okay, but where is the evidence where he paid money for it? There isn't. Then number 2, has Bob Kraft admitted that he paid for a hand job? Well, has he? I'm hearing crickets here.
No, he didn't.
Okay.
He hasn't.
And number 3, what are the chances you think this woman's going to testify that she's A, a prostitute, and B, charge someone for sexual services? Do you think there might be a problem? I don't know. I want to throw it out there. Anyone think that maybe there's a reason she may not want to do this? Guys, throw it out to the audience.
Chat.
Why would she want to admit to this?
He's not gonna, because he didn't do it. He didn't pay.
No, her. Why wouldn't she want to testify?
You said he.
No, why wouldn't she want to testify that she charged Bob Kraft $40 for a hand job?
She'd be assumed she'd be guilty.
Thank you. So you mean we have a Fifth Amendment issue here? Okay, number 2, the charge is not being dismissed. No.
Dropped.
No, they're not being dropped.
What is it?
Deal.
It's a deal.
Not because I read the statement. It's called what we in Massachusetts call here a quaff, a continuance without a finding. What it is he admits the material facts in the police report are true.
Mm-hmm.
They do not enter a guilty. He goes on probation for a year. If he completes the probation, the charges are then dismissed. Okay?
Yes, but that's all done by agreement, and his lawyers make that agreement with the prosecutor.
Right. If he violates the terms of probation, the quaff is changed to a guilty, and he can be sentenced appropriately. So not dismissing it outright. It's a deferred prosecution, and that happens all the time. And oh, by the way, as someone actually practices criminal law, I've been doing this for 25 years. I can't tell you the last time I had someone be convicted of sex conduct for a fee. Never happens. Those cases are virtually impossible to prove. The only time we get any traction is when they do the hooker bait things, where they send out undercover officers to get Johns to proposition them. That's the only time you can even well. Most of them are thrown out because you got the entrapment argument. Works very well. So no. If I were Bob Kraft's lawyer, I'd say, hey, take me to trial. Prove I did it.
Right. All right.
Remember, I don't have to say anything. I don't have to prove I'm innocent. You got to prove I'm guilty.
Full Diesel twice in one show.
You haven't seen nothing yet, pal.
We're flying along here with 35 minutes into the show. We got a lot of people popping up in the chat. I got to say hello to these guys again. Okay, moving on. UFC's Conor McGregor walks into the annual South Boston St. Paddy's Day Parade. He was also at the Bruins game the night before. And it was a good time. It was a good event. And at this event, Mayor Marty Walsh, who usually kicks off the parade, announces that he would back Joe Biden if he runs for president in 2020. Gee, wow, that's funny. Why are you announcing this, Mayor Marty Walsh? Because Joe Biden hasn't said a word yet. And then just before we go live tonight, Wall Street Journal releases the story and says that Joe Biden and Mr. Obama are in. Biden had met with people over the weekend. They are already looking for people to fundraise, and even though it's not the so-called official announcement, this is it, people. Joe Biden is making it pretty much the run for 2020, and I would say that he's probably going to be a strong front runner. But another question is will America vote for an older president? Sanders is 77. Biden is 76. I'm going to throw this out there and let you guys talk on that real quick. I'm going to go with Ken Diesel first.
Age is not the barrier it used to be. Remember, we all thought Reagan was too old. He got elected. Then we elected Trump, who was 74, I believe. I just don't think that age is that much of a barrier. Will it be a concern to certain people? Sure, it will be. It'll be one factor, but I don't think, all other things being equal, will his age be a detriment. It may not. Actually, it may be helpful because our electorate is getting older. The baby boomers are now all starting to retire. The Gen Xers are in their 50s, for God's sakes. The millennials are in their 20s and 30s. So, no.
Okay. Squid.
I think people knew all along that Biden really wanted to run. He really wanted to be president. He blew it in 2008. Well, I don't know if he blew it, but 2008 was his really good shot, and he didn't get it. And he was, he agreed to be vice president. And then because of things, whether he should or should not have run in 2016, my guess is he would have won in 2016. Now, as he looks forward for 2020, I don't think anybody's surprised that he's been really leaning forward to do this, that anybody, especially someone who understands politics, if you're thinking of running for president, you're going to be spending months, if not years, trying to work with the party structure in the key states and nationally to try to line up the campaign staff, the endorsements, the infrastructure people in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and elsewhere. And so, what this story in the Wall Street Journal is Biden taking another big step forward. It's not an announcement of his campaign, but I don't think anybody's going to be surprised when that announcement comes in the next week or so, because he clearly wants to be president. And this is definitely his last shot if he has a shot. As far as the age thing goes, I think it's interesting. I don't know that there's going to be an outright, discrimination by age. I think Ken is right on that point. I do think rightly or wrongly, based on the current president's concerns over physical and mental health, and I'm not being – this isn't a Trump shot here. This is just, there were legitimate concerns about his health. And Biden is in better health than Trump in many ways. Mm-hmm. But when you have a candidate of this age, and Hillary Clinton she faced that scrutiny in 2016, and she had health problems that hurt her in the campaign. When she collapsed and other things, people started getting nervous about her health. So the problem that you have is, people aren't going to say that they're not voting for him because he's 76 years old, but people are going to be concerned about his health, and that may intentionally or subconsciously attract them to look at other candidates. So I do think it's going to be a problem for him. I don't think it's going to be an outright campaign of people saying we're not voting for him for his age. Same thing with Bernie Sanders. But I do think people are going to think about that very heavily.
Cool. Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. All right, moving on, because we got still got a lot of topics to talk about and a little bit of time left in the show. This past weekend, Tom Clancy's The Division 2 was released on Xbox One, PS4. Again, another game that I wish Ken would hurry up and get his Xbox One so he could be playing this game with me. It is a great game, and Viana Marie actually went back to Mississippi, so we'll be booking some shows for the summer coming up, but this has allowed me to have some free time. So bye-bye free time. For those who know Sinister One, I am on Division 2, and me and my son and another good friend of mine, we loaded up and took over a couple of missions last night. Ken, this is going to be a movie they're talking about. It's a great game. This Division 2 takes place in Washington, D.C.
Yep. I know. I know. I've seen all the commercials.
Yeah,
Air Force One crashing. Yep.
Yeah, it's a pretty good storyline, because in the end of Division 1, you had these division agents who worked for the government, this black rogue ops that worked for the government. They actually broke off and went rogue themselves at the end of Division 1, which is a typical Tom Clancy storyline to keep you buying these games, to be honest. So if you're out there, Sinister One, join up with me. We only want real good players to play with us. This is a real tough game to play. You really need 4 people to play and do these missions. So if you're out there, let's get on board and do it. Marvel's Captain Marvel took home top honors again, $69.3 million. We actually took the kids to see it. I like the movie. I like the throwback to 91. I like where they're going. It's a good movie, good storyline, great lead-in for this Avengers Endgame that's going to be coming out in a couple of months. But the question is can Captain Marvel take home the top spot again this weekend? I don't think so, because Jordan Peele's latest horror flick, Us, opens this weekend, and that's projected to make 50+ or more. And Jordan Peele's movie Us looked amazing right from the get-go, and as we mentioned last week, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, so we're going to see what's going to happen here. Also in the entertainment news, Backdraft 2 trailer was released quietly, and it's being pushed. There's a Donald Sutherland action movie, which is kind of hard to understand, because Donald Sutherland's character in Backdraft he's kind of like in jail. He's kind of like this guy who's an arsonist. And
he's not kind of like he is in jail, and he is an arsonist.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's no action there. There's no action, so I don't know how they're pushing it. The story takes place because Bull's son is now a firefighter, and his uncle or is now the head of. He has De Niro's job. So the Baldwin character now has De Niro's job, and Kurt Russell's son is now on the Chicago. I think that took place in Chicago Fire Department. So if you want to check that out, Backdraft 2 trailer.
Well, hold on a second, if I may. If you remember, one of the scenes in the movie is the parole hearing for the Sutherland character. So
yes.
Maybe he makes parole.
No, when you watch the trailer, it doesn't look like he made parole. He looks like he's still in jail. So he was crazy anyway. He was cuckoo as a friggin' Cocoa Puff in that movie. I'm going to admit to you guys right now, Backdraft is one of those movies that did make me shed a man tear. The relationship between Baldwin and Russell in that film really reminded me of me and my brother, to be honest. And at that end scene when Kurt Russell is dying after falling in his fight with Bull and gets impaled, and, Baldwin's down there fighting the fire, and he says, "That's my brother, God damn it, look at him go." Dude, that even just saying it just tears me up. It just makes me think about me and my brother, and it's good stuff. Guys, thoughts real quick on Backdraft 2, R-Squid?
Well, I enjoyed Backdraft, and so I'm looking forward to this one. I haven't seen the trailer, but I don't need to. I know I'm going to see it. I think, I'm looking forward to it.
Ken?
My problem is, this is my problem, is I actually love Backdraft. Don't misunderstand me. I thought it was one of the true great films. Ron Howard always makes a great film. My fear, and this is my fear, that every time we have a lot of these movies that have not, they're a sequel or they're a continuation with a new cast, it's hard to capture magic in a bottle twice. Example, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack from Sister One, but I saw Creed, and I was a little disappointed in that because I just thought it was Rocky redone, with Sylvester Stallone now playing Mickey, and Creed playing Rocky. It was kind of disappointing. So that's what I'm worried about. Of course, I'm going to go see it. Don't understand me. I'm going to go see it.
I think you're right. One of the things that's an advantage is it's been so long since the original that for a lot of people it'll be like a brand new movie, even if they remember the original, because there's just been a huge gap of time, and I don't think they're remaking it and calling it a sequel. So I think it has a shot just because of the big gap in time. I just want to add, I saw Deb Oren has joined us in the chat. She enjoyed Backdraft 1. And when I saw you join us, I just wanted to, if I could take a point of personal privilege and wish Deb Oren a happy birthday. It's her birthday this week.
Oh, happy birthday.
As a very loyal watcher, I wanted to wish Deb a happy birthday and her son Josh.
Oh, great. Well, yeah. Happy birthday to both of you.
Cool. Now I'm going to shift gears here. We got to get into a couple of legal questions. I was going to jump into. I'm going to take Backdraft because this goes right into this story this week. Christopher Roy was a firefighter in Worcester who lost his life, and charges have now been filed against the person who lit that fire, the arsonist. He is now being charged. It's now charged with a homicide. This goes kind of back to the movie Backdraft, where you have a fire, and I was like, so I understand it, but there are a lot of people out there like, how do you charge an arsonist with a homicide when he didn't mean to kill the firefighter? I'm like,
called felony murder.
Go ahead, Ken.
There's a term called felony murder, and what that is anyone involved in a felony. If someone gets harmed or dead as a result of you committing the felony, you're responsible, even if you did not intend for that person to die. One of the most egregious, I think, interpretations of this is the feigned one when you have a shootout with police. If the police kill the person next to you, you are charged with that person's murder, even though you didn't shoot the person, because it was a foreseeable event of you commissioning this felony. So that's how it is. It's called felony murder. That's how they get it. And arson, one of the things in arson is that it's always expected that you could lead to death or destruction, and therefore you get all of the you are blamed for all the ramifications of the fire. For example, let's say you plan to burn down a vacant commercial building, and the fire jumps. For those of you not familiar with the terms, it means when the fire, leaves the area which you lit it in and affects another building, and two people die in that building. You had no intention of harming that building or those people, but you are charged with the arson of the building you burnt down and the building next to it. So, that's what it is. So that's how you get it.
You want to add on that, Squid?
No, I totally agree. I think I posted on that when we were talking about it. Ken said it perfectly.
Okay, cool. Jesse Smollett also arrived in court last week, entered a plea of not guilty. I'm going to ask Ken real quick, what are your thoughts on this one, man? We've been talking to you because we've been talking to you as if you were Jesse's defense attorney.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of two minds on this. One, I think he should burn in hell for what he has done because, I got enough problems out there. I don't need you to go out and inventing crimes. Number two is, I'm sorry, if this had been anybody else but Jesse Smollett, they wouldn't have charged him, or they wouldn't charge him the way they
really.
Yes,
really.
They are.
Oh, wow.
It's a high-profile case, and they want to make an example of him, and I think that is unfortunate, or not unfortunate. It may be a little unfair that he is being charged because he's a celebrity. Anybody else, I think they would have charged him with a misdemeanor or maybe a one-count felony, not all these other things. Wow.
Okay. Good. Anything to add to that, Squid?
Yeah, I think, it's funny. A lot of times we talk about how celebrities get off, that they benefit from a double standard. So part of me says it's a good thing I like to see that they're not letting him off easy because he's a celebrity. I think that, police departments that are facing so many challenges right now, including resource challenges as well as other problems that they're addressing. I think anybody that creates a fake crime like this that results in the manpower effort and everything else that went into this is going to get charged regardless. So I think he would have been charged no matter who he was. I do think, though, that strategically they overcharged. I don't know if they overcharged, but they either overcharged or maximum charged this case more than they needed to, and that's a common strategy to try to get a plea out of it, where you plead to something.
Yes.
If you just plead to something, they drop the rest, and the end result is the same. But the fact that you're in jeopardy for so many charges, that adds up to years in prison as opposed to one that maybe doesn't sound so bad, and you roll the dice and try to fight it. I think that was a big part of the decision here. And so he went in and pled not guilty. My guess is there's going to be a deal made down the road and not too long from now.
Yeah, because he's got to kind of salvage his career, to be honest. So we'll see where we go there. Vienna Marie's in the chat. She said, "Did you all hear about Wendy Williams living in a sober house right now?" No, I didn't. For those who don't know who Wendy Williams is, she's a talk show host. She's been under fire for some of her comments. So she's been back and forth. Her health has been bad, but the rumors is now that she's in a sober house right now, which wouldn't surprise me because she's got a ton of health issues and she's been on a ton of painkillers, so it wouldn't surprise me. Moving on, we're flying along here. Catholic Church urges SNL's Pete Davidson to apologize for his comments comparing the church to R. Kelly. This goes back to my comments last week. I was watching SNL and saw the news break that they do, and he came out and he compared the people who go to the Catholic Church, pretty much hypocrites, and compared them to R. Kelly. We knew that this was going to be a big deal. And the funny thing about this is that this rolls into pretty much our Trump troubles tonight, because this past week there was an airing of SNL that was a repeat from this past Christmas that did a spinoff of It's a Wonderful Life that I had never seen before, which featured everybody.
Never seen that? Oh.
I've never seen this one before. I sat in my man cave watching it, and I was in friggin' tears. And then I didn't even know that Robert De Niro played Robert Mueller. And when he came out, I was just dying when this whole thing came up. Well, and here's the thing is that I guess I wasn't the only one watching SNL that night, the repeat, because it looks like Donald Trump was also watching, who went on a Twitter rampage to the point where Vanity Fair wrote a whole story talking about his mental condition spiraling, and he also threatened to launch a federal investigation against SNL. He wants to file he feels that he is being assaulted. Again, does he not know that SNL falls under the legal rights of satire? It is sketch comedy. They are protected, if I'm not right. Am I, Ken? It's satire. They're protected. He can't file any type of federal investigation, correct?
As much as I hate to admit this because you are a Google lawyer, but you are absolutely correct.
A Google lawyer. I love that. That's
parody and satire are one of the exemptions to libel and slander laws. That's why you can do these and you cannot be attacked. And here's the other thing. The question was, would anyone believe – well, let me rephrase it. The standard, would a reasonably prudent person believe the information that's on display? That's the standard. Mm-hmm. And the standard is absent malice. Absent malice is nothing you can do. There's another thing you must remember, that the standard is even higher for a public figure. And say what you want about Donald Trump, but I don't think anyone's going to disagree that he is a public figure. So we got to start out with this. First of all, you've got to believe that Alec Baldwin was Donald Trump, that he was an actor playing Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Then you got to believe there was actually an angel coming down to talk to Donald Trump, and that he has somehow a way to change this time-space continuum, having him not president. That's what you got to be able to prove in order to get a malice or a libel claim against him. I don't think so. No way. Not even close. Nice try. I think Donald needs to go take a Xanax or something.
Square, do you want to add to that?
I mean, just real quick. I mean, obviously, there's absolutely not even a sniff of a claim here, of a legal claim here. It won't even make it to being filed in court. I don't even, So I mean, I'm not going to just repeat what Ken said. There's just absolutely no way. I do think it's interesting though, because you mentioned the tweet storm over the weekend, which was not just on this, but. I mean, the president suffers from some serious problems, mental health, personality, authoritarianism, all these different things. And this is what conflates when they do this. Saturday Night Live has made fun of every president since it went on the air, and that was back in Ford's day. Where they made fun of Ford for tripping, falling down the stairs of Air Force One. And a lot of people, some people love the humor, some people don't. They've been doing it for so many years to so many presidents, to so many politicians, to so many celebrities. My goodness, there's not even an ounce of a claim against this. And if you're going to be in public life, it's almost a badge of honor to be made fun of by SNL. It means you've made the big time. Yeah. Seriously.
Yes. Exactly.
Now. Yeah, I said the same thing. We got a lot of people still in chat. Deb Orman was mentioning the Deer Park fires in Houston, Texas. I actually didn't hear about that. Hopefully there's no lives lost. Vienna Marie has confirmed that she announced it on her show that she was living in a sober house. So that's pretty crazy. Vienna Marie says white people calling cops on black. Actually, Vienna Marie just made a point on here. White folks calling the cops on black folks for a living, and this is news. Well, actually, it is news because I just saw this week, Ken. They're trying to make this a hate crime, or is it the NAACP or someone that's trying to make it a hate crime for calling on black people who are not doing anything? Go ahead. I'll let you talk about that real quick.
Exactly. Very quick. A number of bills in various state legislatures, and they have absolutely no chance of passing, by the way, that if a person calls the police on a person of color without a clear indication of criminality, that they should be charged as a hate crime. Ain't going to happen. No. Because how do you know what the person thought? If I see a guy – take an example. This may be racist, but maybe not wrong. I see a guy – with a black guy with chains around his neck walking around Brockton with a machine gun slung over his shoulder or a semi-automatic, I call the cops because, hey, that. Now, that person may have a license to carry, which would then allow him to do that. And so am I being racist? Yeah, I'm being a goddamn racist. Am I wrong? Who knows? So, yeah. I think the better thing is to educate the public and educate your police departments. There's been a number of parody videos showing dispatchers, telling people, to knock this crap off. These people who call the police on people of color doing perfectly legal things have gone viral. I think there's a backlash that maybe people are getting called out, and I think rightly being called out. So I think that's the better way. We don't need legislation. We need education.
I agree with you on both counts that we need education and that this would be a very troublesome thing to prove. In my experience, that doesn't stop legislatures from passing things like that because they want the political benefit. They don't care that the law would be very ineffectual or difficult to prove because if you have it on the books, you have it on the books, and maybe somebody would be dumb enough to confess to it, or maybe there would actually be evidence to be able to prove that the malice intent of making up a false claim, or maybe the standard would be such extreme recklessness. I don't know. It would have to pass constitutional muster at some point. But there are certainly people out there that are probably calling knowing that their claims are false, and then there are going to be people out there calling because they're in some state of panic that's unfounded, completely unfounded and unreasonable. But that would be harder to criminalize something like that. So it'd be interesting. I guess each one of these bills is going to be written differently. We'd have to look at a bunch of them to kind of see how they've addressed the issue of proving intent, how they've addressed the issue of constitutionality. But I do think that there's danger. You see it as a plot line. We're stalling here while Sinister One gets back online. His computer died. But there is, and they do it in some of these police drama shows. Here he is. And so, the problem is that it's called swatting, right? It may not be a hate crime. It may not be racially driven, but people make fake police calls to get SWAT to respond to somebody's home or business. So there's a lot of misuse of 911. Whether it's racially based, whether it's prank based, whether it's and I do support the need for police departments to do something about it. We've got to knock that off because people can get killed or seriously injured by that, innocent people, and it's a waste of resources. So I'd like to see something come of it, but I agree with you, Ken, that there's going to be some proof issues, especially on the intent element.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And again, I agree with every point you said, especially about the fact that just because it's a stupid law that's probably unconstitutional doesn't mean some legislature will not vote it into law. That being said, I agree with the fact that we need better education and on the swatting comment. There have been enough times where police officers have legitimately or not so legitimately mistaken normal household items for weapons and shot someone, when they're responding to a legitimate call. We definitely don't need this to, add another fuel to the fire. But of course, it's funny, Rob, you and I are sitting there, saying this as two middle-aged white guys who probably never been profiled or pulled over because we're driving a nice car. Where our colleague here probably doesn't have the same experience with law enforcement officers. So I'm going to kick it back to him.
What you talking about me? Oh, Jesus
yeah.
Christ! You know what? Here's the funny thing too. I have this joke that there are certain places that I don't like to drive through while black, and then one of those places, and I hate to say it, is Milton, Massachusetts. Yeah. I've been pulled over more in Milton than any other place in the state of Massachusetts, and it's sad because Milton is a town that is paying out a large lawsuit to a gentleman that they actually harassed, who was picking up his daughter from her birthday party. He was a black man, and he ended up being this really distinguished doctor who was well known in Milton and throughout Boston. And they harassed this man to this point where they ended up losing they had to pay out
a major lawsuit. Yeah,
it was a major lawsuit. Guys, we are at 8:01. And I got one more topic we got to blast out. We just want to give an update on the college scandal, which really wasn't much, but the only reason why I got to mention it is because R Squared posted a really good blog over at hoopsy.com. I actually shared the link to his blog at the top of the chat in tonight's chat. The only real update, and here's the thing, guys, we talked about this last week. We were worried about this whole story going on the back burner and disappearing from view, and it kind of seems like that's where this may be headed. I hope not. Pro golfer Phil Mickelson was actually named as an unknowingly participant. I don't know how you're accidentally named as an unknowingly participant. He was connected to Singer, but I guess he didn't know what Singer was doing. I don't know, but because R Squared because R Squared,
for those of you who get it,
who wrote the blog this week. I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to let R Squared talk about this update and what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, the update was out there when I was posting this thing on Friday at your request, but I didn't include it because this was Phil Mickelson and Joe Montana, former NFL quarterback. Mm-hmm. So you have two more, celebrities, and I don't know what they knew. I don't even know what they did. It wasn't clear from. There was a very vague piece that just happened to mention their name, and it was really to mention their name just to say that they denied it. But it seemed like they had a plausible case. I mean, it's hard to know. I don't know how you would be involved with Singer doing college stuff and not know that you were committing fraud, but yet the information I had didn't show what it was they did. It's not like they were bribing sports officials with fake athletic credentials like some of these other parents, and there wasn't an allegation that they had fake SAT scores. So I would have to see more before passing judgment. Nothing surprises me because look at all the people that did this. So the story is going to be back burner because now what has to happen is all of these people who have been named are going to start having their court dates. Especially those that pled guilty, and some are cooperating. So that's going to take a little bit while this thing expands. Remember, the investigation isn't over. They just got far enough to levy indictments against 50 people, including the 33 parents. So what's interesting is, there'll be more indictments coming from this, whether it's more celebrities, whether it's more wealthy CEOs, who knows who it's going to be. My guess is, if they already found a few celebrities, maybe there'll be a few more, but that's not even relevant. The issue issue is how much is, how big this thing is. And so what I really want to see next, and I spent some time on the piece on this, is really what would be the appropriate punishment. We talked about this last week a lot. Is a lot of people said these folks should go to jail. Yeah, they're facing jail time. There's no doubt about it. They don't go to hardcore prisons for crimes like this because they're nonviolent white-collar criminals, and so they tend to go to what we call country club prisons or minimum security prisons where they can still have a decent life, albeit separated from their families, but it's not what you would think. So to me, it's all about the fines they have to pay. They have to pay fines that are both commensurate with the actions they took, punitive against people who do this type of thing, and have a deterrent effect so that we don't have more of these scams. We're going to have more, but we need to try to deter them and minimize them. So I think that people should be paying the maximum fine allowable under the Constitution, because the Constitution is, we don't allow debtors' prisons and things like that. So the fines will be in the eye of the beholder. But I would say something like 5 to 1. You bribe Singer with $1 million to get your kid special treatment, you should pay a $5 million fine, if not more, based on your means. So, we'll see. I'm curious to see what starts happening in some of these court sessions. I'll pay attention to it. I'll update on the show and in the blog as needed. But really, I'm not even sure what they could cover now other than additional indictments that may come down, but more importantly, these court dates.
Ken, you want to add to that before we get out of here?
No, I think what R Square has said, and I would strongly recommend that you go to our site and read this blog and all the other blogs because they're really good.
Yeah, great stuff from R Squid. He's been taking over that writing helm for us. I used to be able to write. I'm kind of envious. I used to write a ton of stuff way back, but I've just been so busy to write a piece. Used to write a ton of stuff on Patriots and wrestling and things like that. So it's good stuff. Guys, we got to get ready to get out of here. We're going to mention again, Vienna Marie's EPV is available on iTunes. I see you're in the chat. It's on iTunes, YouTube, and many other outlets. I got to thank our sponsor, ILoveBostonSports.com. And I think if I've got to give a shirt away tonight, and we haven't given away a shirt in a while, so I think I may give the 2 shirts away to Rick Harton, who's in our chat, and I think that clutch comment in the chat from Shannon Amato about Brockton definitely deserves her a shirt from ILoveBostonSports.com. So you two guys are both going to be winners tonight on the booth. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the horn here and let my guys say goodbye as we roll up on the 8 o'clock hour. Ken?
Well, I want to thank all of our listeners, all 12 of you out there, especially certain people who do not seem to feel the love for Brockton. We still love you, though. Also, our thoughts and prayers and our sympathies go out to all the victims and their families and friends of the shootings. Unfortunately, you are not alone. And for everybody else out there, hey, spring's on the way. So enjoy the nice weather when it comes around. We'll see you guys on the flip side.
Ken, was it you that shared the pretty funny meme out there about are we going to arm Muslims now, or was it us?
Yes, that was me.
Yeah. Yes. Can you explain that meme? Because it was actually pretty funny.
Okay. For those of you who may not remember, shortly after a number of the school shootings, the NRA and their colleagues and their co-conspirators, as my good friend R Squared likes to call them, suggested that we start arming teachers. So in case there's an active shooter, teachers could activate themselves and gun down the shooter. Someone on Facebook drew that and said, well, since there was a shooting at a mosque, I'm still waiting for the NRA to come out and suggest that we arm all Muslims. So in case the next time a mosque shooter shows up, they can gun him down. And let me just say something. While I'm somewhat of a gun control advocate, I have my problems with it. If the NRA came out and said wanted to start arming Muslims to prevent another mosque shooting, I must say I would be forced to agree with you.
Squid?
Yeah, I mean, thanks everybody for listening. What a fast show. We had so much to cover tonight, and I think we're going to have a lot more to cover. That's just the way things are. So, like I say, stay informed, stay active, stay involved, but keep it in check too. Remember to be civil, and remember family and friends are far more important than politics.
Yeah, we did make it through the holidays when all the arguing does start to happen. And, it's funny because SNL did have a skit with that about the holidays and people coming over for dinner and arguing at the table. But we're now headed into the good weather, hopefully. I mean, it was 25 degrees while I was at work last night, and it's supposed to be March 19th. So hopefully when I go in tonight, it's not 25 degrees again. I hope we're heading into our 50s and 40s like we should and get this going. So I got to thank everybody for being in the chat tonight and giving us all the love and freaking support. You regulars out there are killing it. You know, I'm going to keep mentioning you regulars every week. The Deb Orwins, the Amy Lou Porters, the Vianna Maries, the Tyler Zanowskis, the Paul
Thank you.
All you guys out there are just awesome. You keep this show going. And you, like I said before, you don't realize this, but you help take this show in a different way, because when you guys post stuff in the chat for us, Kyle Kafer, also I gotta mention him. You know, it helps take the show in a different way where we can answer questions and get people involved. And, you know, so just if you can, guys, just tell another friend about the show, get them over here in the chat. We love having this live chat in here about now. One of the things that we're doing too, guys, is when we're booking guests, I'm really pushing the fact that, you know, when we have guests on, that we have this live chat. So whatever PR person that they have, that PR person can be in that chat, drop whatever links that they have to help promote whatever. But it also gives them a way to be able to speak with the people in the chat and maybe answer some questions that they may pose to them. So great stuff, good stuff. All I got to say is that I got to get back out to work real fast. I got to thank my guys. Man, sometimes I know I can be a pain in the ass, but guys, they killed it tonight. They both did their thing. R Squared got the blog up that I asked for last week, and you know, these guys kill it every time. The legal questions, I am truly freaking blessed to have these two guys on with me. So I got to get ready to get out of here. And on that, I think I'm just going to say, SpongeBob, do me a favor, take us home.
Well, see you next Tuesday.
Thanks for tuning into the booth at whobazoo.com. Please make sure to tune in for more booth next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. New York Eastern Standard Time. Become a fan on their Facebook page and check out their podcast on iTunes and iHeartRadio. The Booth is a Sinista One production hosted by Sinista One, Ken Diesel, and R Squared.
I've got to start hanging out with friends that are a little more intelligent and understand politics and stuff. It's just that I'm up on this level up here, and all my friends are down here. Me, nah. You guys, nah. Maybe a little more down in here. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Who? 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 Who?